Welcome to another episode of Black Coffee and Crime. Thank you all for joining us. This is episode number 45, and I found out today that we have reached over 100 subscribers on YouTube. Um, yes, we
Yes.
celebrate everything over here, so every milestone might not be big news for a lot of people, but it's very big news for us. We've been doing this for almost a whole year, so it means a lot that we have some dedicated people that join us weekly who expect to hear from us all the time. Sorry about that noise. Who expect to hear from us, want to hear from us, want to know what we're doing week to week. So thank you all. So, cheers for another 100, some more people coming through. So today we are going to start off as we always do with what? These are your announcements as follows. We're going to take a break, y'all. We're taking a break. We've been doing this for almost an entire year. The only time that we have not done a show was last August when I was on vacation. I'm a little drunk and I didn't get the time zones right. And then for Christmas, we took a couple weeks off for Christmas, but just to take a break, because we've been doing this week to week to week, we're going to take a couple weeks off and return. What day were we returning? We are going to return. The next show will be aired on June 29th. June 29th. Coincidentally, we're going to record the show on June 27th, which is our actual 1 year anniversary. The first show that we did was last year on a Thursday on June 27th. So we are going to record our show on the 27th. Which was our 1 year anniversary, and you'll see it on Tuesday on YouTube on Tuesday the 29th. So we're going to take a couple weeks off, and that's just kind of
that's the day we started on Instagram, right?
Yes,
yeah.
We were just like, you know what, pandemic has really messed up what we wanted to do, and we don't know what we're doing, but we're just gonna do it. I mean, we're just gonna go live on Instagram, and we told all of our friends and family, hey, we need you guys in there. We don't care if you walk away from the phone. Mm-hmm. We don't care if you participate. We just need you to tune in. And they did, and more people did. And, we have quite a few people following us on Instagram. Every day we get more people following us. Same thing on Facebook, and then now on YouTube as well. So those are the dedicated people who tune in, not including the people who just go by keywords or subject and tune into us, on a weekly basis. So thank you so much for that. Let's see. Any other church? One of the announcements, Brandy's not here today. I'm assuming I believe that she's under the weather. So, keep her on keep her in your prayers. Things happen. But she'll also, she'll be back and joining us on the 29th. Most of the reason why we're taking this break is because it's summertime, beginning of the summer season, lots of graduations and events, and things that will get postponing and stuff like that. So when we come back, we'll have a new list of content, maybe some changes to the way we do things, maybe some changes to what you see. But we're still going to come to you with unscripted conversation about true crime, current events, things like that. If you have any suggestions of shows that you want to, or subject matter that you want to see us talk about, please hit us up at info@blackcoffeecrime.com or on Facebook or Instagram at Black Coffee Crime. Okay. All right. Those are your announcements as follows. Please obey your ushers and respect your pastor. I just want to talk about Jackie's eyebrows. Yes.
They look good, yeah.
Yes. I just noticed them. And I'm like, wait.
Now, keep in mind, I'm proud of myself. They are sculpted today. They ain't shaved. They are sculpted. I'm so proud of myself.
Yes.
I was like, oh my God, this is kind of fly.
Yes. I like.
Thanks. But
I was like,
yes.
Okay.
Trying to be beauty girl in the streets.
And the liner, I did notice the liner.
My liner is not good. I've done way better. But
and I'm gonna tell you I like it because I can never do that. With my eye shape, with my eye shape, when I do it, I think it looks so good because I'm like, they say go along right here in this corner.
Mhm.
and I do that, and it looks like it's like up here. Like I'm like, no, but it's in the corner right there. I just went.
I mean, I started to go like way dramatic and probably do like the extra line up here. I started to, but then I just didn't. I got so mad at the line that I was like, you know what, forget it. This is the best. My eyebrows look good.
Well, I was doing my makeup, and my significant other comes in the bathroom and it's like, your face looks flat. I was like, what? What do you mean? My face doesn't look flat. It's like you don't have. It doesn't look like you have makeup on, and there's no color. I said that's called neutral.
Oh, that's what he
That's
meant?
called neutral. He's like, oh, wrong words. I said that wrong word can fuck up everything, okay? Because you just said my face is flat.
He doesn't know the terms.
But all I heard was your face is flat. I said that's not flattering to anybody about anything. You don't feel it's flat.
Flat. He said it. Did it? And he was like, it sounded like he was confused on why you didn't know what he meant. Like it was a bare face. I mean, you don't have.
What you mean? Like this. Oh,
What's
that's
the
what you
problem?
mean. Yeah. So this shadow right here is the microphone, y'all. So this shadow that I can kind of hide is the microphone. All right. So big, lots of stuff in the news this week. We're talking things on Al Gore's internet. One thing that is in the news this week that we've talked about before is Lori Vallow. That's the lady who, the most horrible family thing. Okay, so she's married. Her brother gets into an argument with her husband, kills her husband. Then she gets married to Mr. What was his name? Fidel.
Mhm.
His wife mysteriously died too. Then her kids go missing for months and months and months. No one knows where the kids are. They skip
You know,
town.
she lied and said she knew what it was.
Said she knew where they were. Nationwide manhunt for these kids. They go to Hawaii. Still no kids. They did finally found the kids on the new husband's estate. But get this. She has now been gone through a competency hearing for her mental competency in Idaho. She's not mentally competent to stand trial.
Cut it out. Cut it out. Cut
I
it
don't
out.
understand because this
She was literally vacationing while everybody was like, "Where are your kids? None of your business."
kids. So I don't really understand how she's mentally incompetent because this went on for months. Like you're hiding the kids die, you kill them. They don't just die, you kill them.
Yeah.
You're hiding the kids, you go on vacation. So at what point, sorry y'all, first, because you know I need what tissue. At what point was she mentally incompetent? At what point did she lose it? Like, was it at the time of the murder? But then you hid them, so you had some point of clarity because you buried the bodies. You buried the bodies well enough to where the authorities could not find them on the initial searches on that property.
Anything to give them a little bit more time or try to figure out how to get them out of what they're doing. My own family issues, we're dealing with someone that's doing the exact same thing. And it is very frustrating.
I can just imagine. Her husband, Chad Daybell, that was her name, Daybell, not Fidel. They've both been charged with murder of the two children and tampering with evidence and things, tampering with conspiracy to tamper with evidence and tampering with evidence. But here's the thing about being judged mentally incompetent. It doesn't mean that she's necessarily let out amongst the public. It means that she'll most likely be held in a mental institution or something, in some sort of institution until she's reevaluated and deemed competent to stand trial. And you could technically stay in a mental institution your entire life. So she could basically be facing a life sentence while she's not necessarily incarcerated in prison, but in a mental hospital or whatever. So Yeah. So psychologically, she's found is not mentally sound to proceed to trial and recommends she undergo treatment. Um, this is from the East Idaho News that reported. So she killed her daughter, Tylee Ryan, 16, and JJ Vallow, 7, September of 2019. And then their remains were found on Chad Daybell's land.
Yeah.
This is such a twisted and convoluted story because the thing with her brother is she was fighting with the husband. They go to Arizona to drop the kids off, and he gets into a fight. Her brother, Lori Vallow's brother, gets into a fight with her then husband or ex-husband, and then they get into a fight. He dies. He kills him, but then the brother also dies from some unrelated or illness.
I'm not laughing at him dying. I'm like, it's the craziest thing.
And it's like the brother is like the
so
linchpin.
crazy.
Right. It's crazy. It seems like the brother is the linchpin to all of this. Like he would have known all of this. And then they were in some sort of crazy doomsday offshoot of the Latter-day Saints church. And her cousin's wife was also heavily involved with this cult, but the cousin kind of wasn't. And then the church, the little cult church thing was trying to kill them.
It was a lot going on.
It's
what were they calling? What were they, survivalists or something? What were they calling them? Like
I forget what the name of this group was.
There's a specific name for them, but it's like they were always preparing for the end. It was like
and she said that her kids, Tylee and JJ, were zombies while they were alive. She might be crazy. So.
There you go. She might be.
There might be some truth to this whole.
Everybody around them, it's like they literally killed whoever they needed to be together. And he's a pastor.
And they're picking. They've exhumed, or they're trying to get the previous Chad Daybell's wife exhumed because their kids are like, our mother died suspiciously. She was fine and everything, and all of a sudden she's just dead. So they suspect that either Chad or Lori, or Chad and Lori, had something to do with Chad Daybell's first wife in order for them to be together. So they're just knocking down chess pieces in order for them to be able to be together.
Weird.
Yeah. So as this develops, weird talking about this and keep bringing you updates. Now, there's another interesting story that you found about a woman that may have Munchausen by proxy disorder.
Yeah, so a foster mom, I was going to include the race, but I don't think it plays a part in the story, so I'm not going to.
Okay.
A foster mom.
I'm going to talk about it, but go ahead.
It doesn't. Okay, you know what? Yes, it do. Because I need to say where this little baby is from.
Let me say this before you start. It plays for race, not in the reason why she did what she did.
Okay.
But the race comes in the access that she had to these kids.
Maybe that's what I was looking like. Like, okay, it doesn't play a part in what happened.
Yeah, I don't think what she did had anything to do with the race. That the race had nothing to do with her actions, but the reason why she got the kids had something to do with race, even if it's on a very basic level.
So a white foster mom by the name of Sophie, I'm sorry. Yeah, Sophie. She adopted a little girl from Africa, and she literally was faking her illness so that she can be a part of the Make-A-Wish. That's where it came out of. When she was submitting her paperwork for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, the baby's main doctor saw the entry and was like, wait a minute, like there's nothing wrong with her. I've been telling you this forever. The baby had a feeding tube. She had her diagnosed to where she couldn't walk. She wore braces. I mean, it's almost like Gypsy Rose.
She had braces on this baby's legs, and there was absolutely nothing wrong with
her. Like, she was perfectly fine. perfectly fine.
multiple
Over
surgeries.
500 medical appointments. She also had a colostomy tube that was administered for her enemas. Where I talked about the leg bracelets, a wheelchair. That's just horrible. She was. We're not saying that the doctors did. They were because she was avoiding certain doctors. If you don't know about Gypsy Rose, the mom was smart enough to know that I need to avoid these people. And when I tell them what kind of symptoms and what she has, then you're going to give me the type of treatment that needs to be done. I'm going to tell you as a mother, hey, I want that treatment because I said she has this.
And see, Gypsy Rose, she was able to. Hurricane Katrina really helped her because they were from Louisiana, and and she says all of our records were destroyed, and then they moved to like the Midwest, I think St. Louis or something, maybe yeah, I think it was Missouri. They moved to, or Kansas, and all these people were helping them out, and she basically made her daughter sick with all these surgeries to get. They gave her a house. Habitat for Humanity gave her a house, and they gave her cars and all these Gypsy Rose was everywhere. And we know how that turned out because she killed her mama. But this is the kind of evil shit that you can't even. And it's not uncommon.
We're going to have to post her Make-A-Wish Foundation, some of that video.
Mm-hmm. Just seeing the picture.
I mean, she can't even wake up without having an attack. And it's really tragic. And I really hope that we can make this one thing work out for her, bitch.
Yeah. And Munchausen by proxy is kind of just a name that they give to a disorder. It's not something that can necessarily be proven, but psychologists kind of put that out there. And basically it's you're making someone else sick in order for you to get attention. And most people do that to children and maybe older people because they're helpless. They're in a very helpless situation and state that, especially children, they don't know how, they can't really vocalize what's really wrong with them. And you hear cases like most famously Gypsy Rose. There was a lady in Florida who did this to her daughter. She was actually convicted and lost custody of her daughter. She's on an episode of American Justice or Cold Case. No, I think it's American Justice. I forget the lady's name, but it was in Florida. And what they, like you said, they go to different doctors. And it's kind of like shopping for people who are on opioids. You keep shopping for other doctors and for pain management until they give you the medicine. So she has all these different doctors for different things. And then it just takes one doctor to be like, this, there's no way that one person can have all of these elements. And how the baby was not even human. I mean, this is a child. This is a baby. This is a wee baby, as we call it.
She adopted her when she was 6 weeks old, but she didn't start saying she was sick till she was 2.
So I wonder.
She's 6 now.
I wonder what was going on that maybe triggered her at when the child was 2 for this behavior to start. I don't know if, I didn't really look too much into Sophie's life to find out whether or not she was married or had a failed relationship or something that caused her to need or require this type of attention. And the only reason why, again, Rob, you say that race plays into this, again, not because of what she did, because I think that she would have done that if it was her biological children or even a child adopted of any other race. But I say that because you do have a lot of children adopted out of Africa to white parents. Because, the parents might be fluent and they're American and they're like, okay, yes, we'll allow you to adopt. The child will have a better life, especially if they come from a country that is going through civil war or civil unrest or famine or something like that. It's the opportunity for that child to have a better life. So the access that people have, foreigners, and I'll say foreigners, meaning anybody born outside of Africa, basically, foreigners to adopt children from Africa is a lot easier than the process of adopting children in America. Russia they used to have a big adoption partnership with, just to, kind of dumb that down a little bit, but with Russia. But people were sending their kids back or abusing the children. So the Russian government has stopped it altogether.
Good.
Has stopped most foreign adoptions altogether, because you're getting these children, you're not treating them well, you get them for the wrong reasons. And so they're like, no, you can't adopt any more children out of our orphanages. There is a famous influencer couple who wanted to adopt a child. There's two actually. Most recently, they wanted to adopt a child, but they found out per their agreement from Thailand or some South Asian country that they would not be able to put that child on social media for an entire year. So they canceled the adoption. So that's letting you know that they were only using that child for clout. And then there was another influencer couple who adopted a child, I believe, from China. I think it was from China. They had him for quite some time. He started to develop some behavior issues and some health issues. So they sent him back. He wasn't, basically, he wasn't marketable. And they sent him back. So, a lot of people are adopting children for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And it's about access, because it's very hard. The process to adopt a child through agencies in the US is rigorous, but in other countries, it might be a little bit more lax because of whatever political or social climate is going on there. So, that's a crazy story. That's a crazy story to do that.
A lot of abuse to children it's overwhelming. The amount of abuse lately to children.
Yeah.
It's quite crazy.
And we see a lot of those stories because, one, we're kind of plugged in, we're looking for stories, and they just keep dropping from.
I mean, they're literally right there.
To just abuse, all kinds of stuff just dropping. You're like, ooh, I don't even want to repost that. I don't even want to repost that. I don't even want to read that, but it's there and it's out there. All right. So those are, just two of the things that we found on Al Gore's internet this week. Now, as we said last week, we're going to talk about two historical serial killer sprees. One in Austin in 1884 and 1885, and then the other from 1911 to 1912 in Atlanta, Georgia. The reason why we're talking about two of them, because they remind us they are very close to the Whitechapel murders, where we first heard about Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
So the murders in Austin predate the Whitechapel murders, which happened in 1888. And then right after that, of course, they never found Jack the Ripper. All of these cases are unsolved. They never found Jack the Ripper. And then the same type of murders happened to servant class Black women in Atlanta, which was largely ignored until the 8th victim was damn near decapitated. So we're going to go ahead and talk about those today. So,
real quick question. Why do you think Jack the Ripper is such a big deal? I listen to a lot of podcasts. So Jack the Ripper is probably one of the most requested stories to do. I don't know if it's the mystery of him not being caught. One of the very first, kind of big deals that happen in London, but I just don't know why it's that popular. I don't know. I'll be reading more stories that are more interesting. I just never knew why it was so popular.
I think Jack the Ripper is so popular, one, because it's unsolved, and there's so many different suspects, possibilities of who it could be. And then the fact that historically you've had murders, of course, but most people are murdered. Even today, most people are murdered by someone they know. Even though we talk about serial killers, and there's a lot of serial killers, and when you think about just sheer numbers of population, there's not that many serial killers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the fact that Jack the Ripper historically is one of the first serial killers before the term was even coined. This is the time when policing And detective work was really the thing. This is when it started. When you're looking at fingerprints and forensic evidence and following a
Mm.
timeline. So what we think of as like the modern detective really started with Jack the Ripper, you know, um, and trying to, and this is also, it was sensational. The media picked up on this, and people. This is when um, even the working class poor of those that could read. This is when newspapers started picking this up, and they're writing
Hmm.
daily of what's happening. So people are like looking at the newsboys, like, "Do you have my paper? Do you have my paper?" And so people really wanted to know. This was a media sensation, and so now when we're here now talking about serial killers. So Jack the Ripper is what really started that. It's been unsolved, and you have
So many.
so many copycats, and it's crazy that these two murder sprees fit right, like the Whitechapel murders in London are sandwiched between these unsolved murders, where women, mostly women, were murdered brutally, and did some of them disemboweled.
Brutally.
And I mean, in Atlanta, we do know that this was a black man or black men who did this in Atlanta. But in Austin, there was a black man accused, there's been a white man accused, and there was someone from Malaysia that was accused, but no one's been convicted on any of this shit. No one. So I think that's why our fascination with Jack the Ripper is, because we're still trying to figure out who the hell did this. I don't think we'll ever find out. I don't
He
think
did again.
And if there was something for us to find, I mean, hell, we know how King Tut was, how he died, but we can't figure out who Jack the Ripper is.
Right.
So yeah, we're not gonna find it. All right, so the Servant Girl Murders, or Servant Girl Annihilator. There was a short story writer, O. Henry. Um, if you're an English major, you know who O. Henry is. If not, you don't know who O. Henry is. But he was a short story writer, wrote for some newspapers, but he coined the phrase servant girl annihilator, but basically the other servant girl murders, or Austin Axe murder. So basically between December 30th of 1884 and December 24th of 1885, this guy kills 7 women, 5 black, 2 white, and severely injures 6 more people, men included in there. They were servants. The black women were servants. And most of the time, 5 of them were dragged from their beds and murdered. And 3 people were, and of the 7, 3 of them were dragged outdoors and mutilated in Austin. The first murder was Molly Smith, December 30th of 1885. And the last one was Eula Phillips, Susan Hancock and Eula Phillips, both on Christmas Eve of 1885. Eula Phillips, her husband, James, was convicted of her murder, but later on the conviction was overturned. So technically no one's been convicted of any of it. These are Ripper-like killings. One of the things that I read, I had never heard of this. I heard about this story probably about maybe 2 years ago from the guy who does the YouTube channel. Oh my gosh, I forget his name. I watch this guy every week. I'm sorry. I will tag him I will actually find that episode that I watched and tag it into the description. But yeah, that's where I first heard of it. Very popular YouTube channel too. I just forgot it because I was just looking at it. But anyway, that's where I first heard of it. I was like, well, I've never heard of this. But mostly it was black female servants that were dragged outside of their beds. They did say that there was a white gentleman who had recently come from England, and then he abruptly left. the murders actually stopped when the police got more police presence, and they employed some night watchmen to the areas affected in Austin of these murders. So he stopped when police presence was increased. So there was immediate stop to these murders, and then a gentleman gets on a ship and goes back to England.
Yep.
The gentleman is unidentified, but yeah. And during that year, they say the New York Times reported that he was a cunning madman. This was an article of December 26, 1885, New York Times. He was a cunning madman. And also in that article, they reported that over 400 men had been arrested during that year.
It's a lot.
400 men arrested. There was, of course, there were some black men in there, and there was also a Malaysian man who was accused in there as well. Oh, I'm in my allergies. I haven't had any allergy issues in a while, but I don't know if y'all can hear, but today is Memorial Day. We're actually recording this on Monday, Memorial Day, and it is raining in Texas on May 3rd. That's what
Texas weather.
Love Texas weather. So we're actually barbecuing outside in the rain. Because why? Because why not?
And he did have there was some witnesses that may have seen him or have an idea. I think they referred to him as he may be a yellow man.
Meaning yellow Asian. Man.
Yeah. I just always hated that term. Yeah. Yellow man. Dark complected. I mean, they really don't know. You just kind of guessing because you don't know. A man is just a man. They just named out all the colors. It was like that's what we saw.
Yeah, and as far as they're thinking that the authorities think that there was either one man or a group of men committing the crimes. Mm-hmm. This differs greatly from what they say in the Atlanta River murders. So I'm going to remind you of one man or one group committing the crimes in this case in Austin. But then when we get to the Atlanta case, it's completely different theory. The Black people in Austin at the time, however, said that they think it was a white man with magical powers.
Yes.
And the reason why they said that is because at these residences, there were no dogs or animals that were ever disturbed. So this person was able to get in and get out and drag these women out of their beds and murder them. Like,
which was what I actually thought. I was thinking, how in the world were they able to just drag them out right there, have time to, just completely axe the hell out of them.
Right.
And not one person sees anything. So I definitely understood if I was in that day, I would think that, we may not want to mess with him. Apparently, he knows way more about things than we do. It would be a little bit more enhanced in scariness because you just don't understand. Right. Especially after the first couple of murders, now everyone is alert. We're alert. Something's going on, but yet nobody is still seeing anything.
Right.
Yeah.
And what did he use to subdue them? Because if I'm asleep and someone grabs me, there's a struggle.
Yeah.
Where in a large home where you are able to afford servants that live there, most of them either in the attic space or in a bottom floor basement type space, and there's not too many basements in Texas.
No.
So it would have had to be most likely an attic space. So how did he get them outside? Dragging them down the stairs, even if it was back stairs. Because I've been in some old homes with back stairs and they're creaky and rickety and they make noise. You would still hear.
My family has stairs in the back. Yeah, my family in East Texas, there's stairs. And I'm going to tell you, first of all, those type of houses aren't even quiet.
No.
In general.
Because they're made of wood and they would have been made mostly wood during that time. So
I don't know.
Okay, question. with them not most likely this being a white man,
Yeah.
most likely. Do you think this was a man of influence, or a worker or something like that? I think that this was a man of influence. I think this was a person that would have been able to uh, go undetected, maybe, or be outside in society around, affluent homes, late in the night or evening, and not be questioned. Because, okay, think about it, this is Texas.
Or the comfort of knowing, especially around that time, that this is maybe, I thought, I'm like, this has to be someone that community, African American community, is comfortable with. Because there are some, and they're, white men at that time that they were comfortable with conversating with and comfortable with dealing with and comfortable with knowing. If an unknown white man walking in their neighborhood, they would have said something.
Right.
It would have drew a lot of attention to him. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, was this a convenience store guy? Could it be the grocery man? Could it have been the mailman?
The
And I
milkman.
know they sound like basic, but those are the ones that
These
during that
people that are
time
out.
they're out.
It's for
You see them, the milkman. These are the people that they see consistently, and obviously, no one had, like you said, no one thought, he had to be walking around.
I have a different take on
Okay.
that. I think it was someone of influence or someone with a little bit of money, with a little bit of culture, because this is Austin, this is Texas, this is the capital of Texas, and
Yeah.
we think about, if you're out at 3 o'clock in the morning, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, then you're automatically going to be stopped or watched. But you think about it, in society at that time and before that, they used to have parties and they ate dinner 10, 11 o'clock at night.
They did.
So they wouldn't have dinner until 10 p.m. It wasn't light dinner because, breakfast, dinner, supper. They wouldn't have supper till late if they were um, affluent, rich families. And then they would have parties
Yeah.
that would last to 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And the servants would have to be awake the entire time. And so they could not go to sleep until the work was done. So there was only 3 of the women that were dragged outside of their, dragged out of their beds. So my thought was they weren't asleep.
Right.
Maybe they were in their living quarters, but I don't think that these people were asleep necessarily. And that they were maybe able to, someone came in and said, and this is purely, I don't know what really happened, but someone, I need you to do this. I need help with this.
Right.
And as a servant, you can't really deny.
It is. That's really good, actually.
You really can't deny. You can't deny a guest anything, especially a Black servant. Now, there were the 2 white women, which were Susan Hancock and Eula Phillips, that were murdered. But servants can't say no, especially Black servants can't say no.
Sure couldn't. Sure couldn't.
So if it was someone of their own race or someone of Asian descent, they wouldn't comply like that. They wouldn't be able to say, "Oh yeah, I'm going to go with you when I just finished cleaning the silver." No, I'm asleep. We'll see you tomorrow, Mr. Milkman.
You're right.
So that's what I think. And being able to go undetected, because why would you suspect someone's culture? Because you have to remember, Jack the Ripper hadn't happened yet. So they don't know that someone is capable of serial murder, because there is no such thing as serial murder at this point. There are single murders.
Right.
There is no such thing as serial murder.
It's good, actually. Yeah, I like it.
So, yeah. So
I forgot about that. Forgot that they party like all night, literally. And they're like standing there waiting all night. So you're right.
Can you grab my coat? Can you, I need help with this, whatever, maybe a guest that was supposed to be staying at one of the houses, anything like that. Psychopath. But
That's
I
good.
really do believe in this case that it was probably a white man
Definitely think it was
that was
probably.
doing this. Um, the last two people were, I don't know what that was outside. Um, let's see. Now, in September 28th, 1885, Gracie Vance and Orange Washington, a black couple, they were both murdered. Um, so those were two of the last murders. And there were actually some women from Scandinavia that were killed. I think it was the last two of Scandinavian descent that were killed as well. So that was, this is and this is the setup for what happens in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And often, like I said, it was a 1 year period. He started right after Christmas, 1884, and it lasted almost, to Christmas of the next year. And they were servants, but they were very aware of what was going on and up police presence. But it was a year later, mostly, I believe, again because these were black servants.
Yeah, the importance is pretty low.
Right. But even though they were black, servants are very important to the way things operate. People don't like to lose their convenience. Now, in Atlanta, in 1911 and 1912, and this is about 20 years, 15, 20 years after the Whitechapel
Mm-hmm.
to England, you have the Atlanta Ripper. Almost 20 women, maybe 21 women, attributed to the Atlanta Ripper. Black women, black servant class women. Again, they're leaving their homes before the sun comes up, and they're coming back after the sun goes down. So very vulnerable. Vulnerable because of the time of day. Vulnerable because they are black, because they're women. Now, the Atlanta Ripper, definitely a black guy. Definitely a black man. I did not think a white man did this. And the reason I say that is because what you said earlier about the Austin murders, they would have known a white man. White man, in this case, in Atlanta, very visible, very suspect, very suspicious about what his actions were and why he's there.
Yep.
In 1906, and this is just to kind of set up what's still going on in Atlanta after the turn of the century, 1906, there was a race riot after claims that some black men had assaulted 4 white women. Of course, this is unsubstantiated. They never were able to prove that there were white women involved in any part of this. But there was a race riot and 40 black men were killed during that race riot.
Uh-huh.
So this is 1906. This is 40 years after the end of the Civil War, still going on in Atlanta. And then in 1911, just population-wise, there were about a little bit more than 150,000 people living in Atlanta in 1911. Still a large city, in a large southern city.
Mm-hmm.
As far as population goes, you still have pre-Civil War thoughts, because you have to think about it, 1906, 1911, people who fought in the Civil War are still alive. People who remember what the antebellum South was are still alive. They haven't died yet. If they didn't die in the Civil War, they are still alive and they're still resentful. The South is still going through a reconstruction process as far as economics. So you're the Black people are still regulated to servant class, work, sharecropping, things like that. So if you lived in Atlanta and you were Black, you were still living in, shanty towns in, very poor working and living conditions. So you have these women, and I did not write down a timeline for the exact, all of the victims, I should say.
And just know the women were all a type.
Yes,
they were all.
They called them mulattoes. They called them mulattoes. And a mulatto is a Black person who has maybe half or quarter of Black, is half or quarter African or African American. Basically, they have a very recent white father, white grandfather, basically, or white mom. Yeah, because like sidebar when we talk about white mom. So I was doing some research on my family, and uh, I'm looking because you hear stories about your family and who's who and uh, who's this person's mom, grandfather. So I'm looking, and I'm looking, and I'm looking for one of my ancestors, and I'm like, I ain't finding them. I'm looking through the census, I'm looking everywhere, and I'm like, why isn't he here?
Mm-hmm.
And I found him, but I didn't find him where I thought I was gonna. So now that ain't him. That ain't him. That ain't him. That ain't him. I keep coming back. In the census, they reported everyone who lived in the household, even the servants. Okay. Well, in this particular census, it was a white family and they had two servants and a baby. The two servants were Black. One of the servants was a Black male, and the other servant was a 10-year-old Black female. And this baby, where the hell does baby come from? Baby was listed as Black in a white family. Where the hell does baby come from? Because think about it. You had a servant back in the day and the servant got pregnant. You no longer employed her because she was morally incorrect. Especially if she was Black. You kicked her out immediately. Why would she be in the house? So there are no Black females of age to have a child in that household, in that census. Whose baby is that?
Yep.
So I kept looking and I kept looking. And I came back and I was like,
process of elimination.
That's this woman's baby. This Black baby belongs to the youngest daughter of this family. Because I looked at the next 10 years in the census, and this female, was at the time when when the baby was there, she was of an age to have a child. The only explanation I could come to was that was her child or the child of that house. Because why else would they keep that baby?
Wow.
So I had to come back and be like, we white.
Like,
yeah. And this is a recent person in my family.
Ooh.
So unless somebody comes out and tells me different, I have to conclude that that's what happened. And this boy child was a mulatto, meaning that he was either half or, has a parent or recent grandparent who is white. So most of these women were mulatto. Mulatto women would have been, back to the story, mulatto women would have been of a certain complexion, a lighter complexion. Think
beautiful, more considered more hair. Beautiful,
more acceptable
standard.
Yeah, their beauty standards would have been different, more acceptable. Same things we deal with now with colorism. So you're talking about a lighter skinned Black woman, maybe could pass for white. Different silkier hair texture, things like that. So this killer had a type.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely had a type. And he had a method as well.
Yes.
He had a method. He would beat these women to the point that one of the victims, they said that her brain was liquefied. Like he beat her on the back of the head so much that her brain was basically liquid. Her face was unrecognizable. Like she damn near didn't have a face. But she was still able to speak to the police, and then she died. So she had just enough left in her to speak to the police, and then she expired. Um, let me
One of
see.
them had their head almost severed off. Seemed
Yes,
like it seemed like Lena. I'm sorry, I think it was Lena Sharp. Yeah, she was the one who had her head almost severed off. That's anger.
yes,
We're
and
not talking about with an axe. Y'all think about in Austin they were axe, axe murder. Sorry, these aren't with an axe.
these are with whatever he could find.
Whatever he could
Razors.
find.
They were all slashed, throats cut, and then beat. So whatever he could find, that's what this killer was using. One of the murders, you're right, Lena Sharp, that happened. She was number 8. Lena Sharp was number 8. She was damn near decapitated. Her murder was what made the media pay attention
Yes.
because they found this woman nearly decapitated. Now, crazily enough, her daughter, Emma Lou, was approached by the killer. She couldn't find her mom. Her mom didn't come home. She was 4 years old. She did not come home. She was worried because their neighbor, I think that was Addie Watts, I think,
Mm-hmm.
their neighbor had also been murdered. So she was afraid that her mom would suffer the same fate, which she did. So this man approaches her and he's real smooth and silky. He's like, I won't hurt you. I don't hurt women who look like you and things like that. But he beats her. Uh, she survives. And then her mom is found damn near decapitated. She was beat with a railroad spike. I don't know if you've seen a railroad pipe, but
Like that.
no, Addie Watts was the one who was beat with the railroad pin. That was the neighbor. Addie Watts was the neighbor. She was beat with the railroad pin. But Lena also throat slashed and almost decapitated.
And a railroad spike is about that diameter.
And they're the ones
Wow.
that keep the railroad ties together and they put them together. So think about the dudes out there on the chain gang doing that. So with the 8th murder of Lena Sharp, they had to pay attention. Even though these were Black women and largely they went unnoticed, the white papers were not paying attention to them. These were not white women. They didn't care.
And if you didn't hear her, that she was number 8.
8.
There was a total of almost 20. Well, about 15 to 21.
Yes. And these
8.
women were pretty much killed the same ways.
Everyone was right. It's the same type of 8. Well, I was like 8.
8.
Well, I didn't know it was 8. I just knew that it was a whole bunch of women prior to.
Yes.
And I was just like, why did it take so long for them to really just
we already
pay attention?
know.
But we know.
We already know. It's because they were Black. The climate in this case is much different than the way it was in Austin. In Austin, they said that this was done by a group, either one man or a group of men. Grand jury in March of 2000. In March of 1912, the grand jury convened and they determined that every murder was committed by a different African American man. That a different man 21 times killed 21 different people. And the reason why they said this was because of this reason here. The coroner, hold on, let me find what he said. Let me go to this. The coroner said, this was Coroner Paul Donahue, and I found this on troytaylorbooks.blogspot.com. So thank you so much for writing this wonderful article. The coroner says that it's the work of the same man. No, that the coroner said that.
The coroner checks some dead bodies.
Right. He said that it was the work of the same man. But there was another quote that said, oh my goodness, that basically Black men are waiting, these were basically saying that the women were immoral You know, you have to expect this kind of thing from women like that. And then
Wow.
also that black men are just waiting to kill their wives.
Wow.
So that was the reason why. Oh my God. And I lost
Yeah.
that quote and I wish I could find it. Um, because that struck me and I was like,
Wow.
one, it's victim shaming.
Yes, it is.
It's their fault. Now, none of these women they weren't prostitutes or anything. These were women who were actually just
Educated.
working. Some of them educated.
Yeah,
They
some of them
were,
educated. I'm sorry. Yeah. Some of
and
them were educated.
and they were, yeah, victim shaming, and then you're just going along the stereotype that black men are animalistic and they can't
Mhm.
control their urges and they're just waiting to kill their wives. They're just waiting out there to kill them. But then that's also very misogynistic outside of racial boundaries, that um, it's okay to kill your wife, you know, because we're still talking in the age, even now, women suffer from domestic violence and they couldn't go to the police because what did you do? You had the right to beat
Mhm.
your wife. And if you found or thought that your wife was doing something immoral, you could kill her and walk away. Damn near walk away scot free
I was
because
say it's scot
her wife
free.
must have done something. She looked at another man, or she's not cooking, she's not cleaning, she's not doing
I was gonna
this.
say she's not
And
obeying. She's not doing what she's supposed to be doing. That
you could kill your
that's a
wife
reason. It's logic. There's a logical reason in their eyes.
in their eyes. Let me see. Oh my gosh. So in late 1912, a man named Charlie Owens was sentenced to life in prison for one of the so-called um, murders committed in Atlanta during the last 18 months. But really, there was no one really convicted for these murders. This Charlie Owens person, um, they basically did racial profiling. Um, you think about when we talked about the doodler and when we talked about the zebra killings, they didn't
Mhm.
know who it was. So they tried to round up everybody. Famously, in the zebra killings, they gave these men cards to know the police department will pick people up and gave them cards to say, okay, we've already questioned you. So if you get stopped again, you could just show your card, your papers, um, and you could show them that you're okay because we've already questioned you. They did something similar in the Doodler case where the guy was killing white gay men. They didn't know who this guy was, until they got the sketch and the description. They arrested so many black men during this time, um, without really knowing. The description that Emmylou Sharp
Yeah, I
gave
was just
of
about to
the
say
man
that.
who approached her, he was tall, black, broad shouldered, and wearing a broad brimmed black hat.
That's everyone.
That's everybody.
It's everyone.
So I'm going to ask you a question. What type of occupation do you think the person
Um, considering his wardrobe, I think that he is whatever he's doing. He's got to be someone of success, meaning someone who maybe has a little bit more money than everyone else. Considering he had the nice hat, the broad shoulders, I would think that he had just a little bit more than everybody else. So maybe, excuse me. This is gonna sound real bad. What I said, maybe a pastor type as because of that. Um, you know, maybe someone who runs like I don't know a meal or who helps. I don't know, just someone who has money or a little bit more money than everyone else in the community. So that's who I thought. I still haven't came up with a reason why. I haven't even fathomed a reason why because there isn't one.
had? Okay.
There to me there isn't one. I mean, let me think. Definitely a man with some money though.
Okay. Now, while you think about that, I have the
I'm trying to fathom why.
motive.
Yeah. What could a motive be?
Okay, motive, and then I'll tell you who I think it was. It's the opposite of who you think it is.
Ooh, really?
Yes. So okay, so in Austin, you thought it was a working class man, and I thought it was someone with money. This time, I think it's a working class man. And the reason why I say this is because Todd Henderson was a guy that they stopped. He had blood and his clothes were muddy. He had blood on his clothes when they arrested him. They never convicted the guy though. And then he took a razor to a knife sharpener or whatever the next day. But I think it is because I think if the person was a butcher or worked in some sort of industry like that, one, because he was disemboweling people. Similar theory to who they thought Jack the Ripper was, either a doctor. They thought Jack the Ripper was either a doctor or butcher.
Doctor or butcher, yeah. Because he knew the anatomy, knew the body.
I think this person worked in the industry where he would have had his clothes would have always been looking a certain way. So he would have largely gone undetected because his clothes are always like that. And he would stay close to alleyways and not along the main streets because polite society wouldn't necessarily want to see a working man with blood on his clothes walking down the main street in the open. And if you recall, Black people could not share a sidewalk with white people. You had to walk on the streets. And in 1912, I doubt if all the streets were paved anyway. So there's the mud, you've got blood. And if you're working in a slaughterhouse or a butcher shop, there's mud and blood everywhere. So in this case, I think this was a working class man, but one who took pride in his appearance, broad-shouldered, tall. Emmylou didn't say that he was well-groomed. He just said he had on a black, broad-brimmed hat. He might have been, I think this was a working class guy. Not necessarily, a vagrant, not like a hobo, but a working class man who took pride in his appearance. So in certain places, he might have appeared well-groomed, but I just do think this was a working class guy. And maybe we're going to talk about colorism here. I think this was a dark-skinned man. I think this was a dark-skinned man.
As in, you know what? That's good.
I think this is a dark-skinned man.
I could deal with colorism.
Because he had an affinity for light-skinned mulatto Octoran women. Maybe he faced rejection from women. Now, for y'all who are not in the know, even within the Black community, we have colorism. We still face colorism. There's a thing called the paper bag theory. And, yes. And in certain families, you did not marry someone who was darker than a paper bag, because if they were darker, then they would upset the balance of the color of your children and the line. So people, and I'm not saying that this is what happened in this particular family, but look at Steph Curry and his family. Okay. His father, fair skin, mother, fair skin, he's fair skin, his wife's fair skin, his kids are fair skin, his brother's fair skin, his brother's wife is fair skin. I'm not saying that that's what happened in the family. Not saying that at all. But that's the type of thing that people wanted to preserve. That's the type of thing that slavery embedded into Black people's minds, that you have to be, because it made you were still Black, but it made your passage a little easier because you were a little bit more palatable to white society, being light complected.
Yep.
You're still Black, but you have a little bit more privilege than your darker skinned brothers and sisters.
Still do. Okay?
So as a dark-skinned Black man, you could marry a light-skinned Black woman, but a dark-skinned Black woman could not marry into a light-skinned family. It didn't happen. Probably still doesn't happen that much today.
I've always attracted lighter-skinned men. Always. I don't have a preference, but
That's
It's
a
so
holdover.
crazy.
That's a holdover
And
from
we're
slavery.
I'm talking about since I've been like 15, 16. It was always weird to me because I'd be like, I don't understand that because all my life I was picked on for being dark skinned. So I never understood why lighter skinned men were talking highlighters, you know, bright or attracted to me. Because I'd be like, that's you don't do that. Like I don't you know better? Isn't that crazy?
Because society has told us that
Yeah.
that doesn't happen. But in actuality, the darker you are, the more attractive you are in Black and African culture. And I'm not
Hmm.
saying this is true for all people because I don't want
No.
to ostracize anybody or just generalize anybody. But for me personally, I like I like them all. Every shade that I can find, I like them all. But let me tell you, the most beautiful, the most beautiful are damn near behind the refrigerator black. I promise you. To me, you think of Jaime Hunsu. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, uh, uh, you think of Lupita Nyong'o,
Yeah.
uh, 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 um, the girl who played Okoye uh, in Black Panther. Um,
Mhm.
to me, they're already beautiful, but the sheen on their skin and the way the sun hits them, and it's like this, 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 this right here. This is what God created. Like God did this by this right here. He took time on this. So, but society's told us that
That's no, no.
that's not what
Yeah,
that is.
no, no,
And so
no, no.
we've adopted those practices inside the African American community, and it's still a holdover. So I think colorism played a large part in this, because again, we are talking
Could
about
be rejection. Could be you said you thinking rejection maybe of
yeah,
attempts to trying to
yeah.
because society has told you, okay, you know what, this type of woman you can date and it can look good because even back then it doesn't change.
Maybe he wanted
Um,
a lighter skinned woman.
mhm.
Maybe he aspired to have that and couldn't have her. Maybe he had a lost love that someone that he was in love with when he was a teenager or a younger man that he could not have, who rejected him, and he took it out on other women. Um, maybe his mother. There are lots of stories and instances where a lighter complected mother has a dark skinned child and ostracizes that child. Don't tell me this don't happen because I know it happens. These
Don't
children are
let this.
differently. Every Black family has these stories. When I was a little girl, my grandmother, Jackie, was probably your. Um,
And don't let these lights fool y'all. I am chocolate chocolate.
this is Juvia who did this.
Yeah.
This is Juvia and these lights, okay?
Yeah.
Um, but my family's from Alabama, and one of her cousins, we were in Alabama. One of her cousins, and I would always travel with my grandmother. And very few times I saw my grandmother speechless and upset like she was when this lady said this. This is her first cousin who said this. Who can be the same complexion or
No,
darker?
but this your grandma, Miss Lola? Your
Yeah,
grandma?
yeah. Who happened to be a couple of shades darker than my grandmother, if I don't recall correctly. We were in Alabama, and she said, because they still refer to me as her Lola's baby. Um, Even on her granddaughter, they would say, your baby. And that lady said, I was maybe 8, 9 years old. Lady said, oh, she's so pretty. She'll be so pretty if she wasn't so dark. The visit was Fred, let's go. Fred, let's go. And again, I didn't understand that at that age. I'm like, why we gotta go? We're having fun. I'm sitting eating tea cakes and shit. I'm drinking a peach knee high. It's why we gotta go. What's going on? Later on, as an adult, experiencing colorism from other areas, I recall that, and I realized that My grandmother, who was born in 1936, inside of a family who was very fair skinned. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody. Most of the women inside my grandmother's family, her sisters and most of her brothers are tall and fair skinned. My grandmother was short and dark skinned. So as the only dark skinned female, she was the youngest girl and the darkest girl. She was the only girl in her family with that complexion. So can you imagine? And I'm not saying that my aunties did anything to her, but can you imagine the comparisons that she would have had to face? My great grandmother was probably my complexion. My great grandfather was a fair skinned man, which didn't make sense at the time, but it happened. Um, maybe she had some money somewhere. It's quite possible. Um, actually, she did. That's probably what. But yeah, so just imagine the comparisons and being compared to her tall, fair-skinned sisters and cousins, and then
Ugh.
40 years later, this is happening again to your granddaughter. Fred, let's go.
And
So that
see,
fact test, even from darker skinned people, you are still being compared, saying that you are
yeah, I was just gonna say that was us. Like my
the
dad is the
irony.
back of the my dad is the back of the refrigerator door. My daddy is. He's very attractive actually, but he is the back of the refrigerator
Your
door.
dad, I've seen pictures of your dad.
He's an attractive guy. But my family is the paper bag color. That is like the thing to be. I even remember saying that to my daughter. Because I didn't recognize that I had said that I was like, well, Jamar, it's not gonna be a big deal for you. I mean, you shouldn't be worried about that. I mean, you are paperback brown. She was like, what? Where do you, mom? Why can't you? How dare you say that? But in that moment, I just reverted to what I was used to being told that she was more acceptable because she was worried about acceptance for something. I told her, well, you're acceptable.
And this is why
You're this color.
This is why we want light skinned kids with good hair. This is why we always wanted. Listen,
I didn't though.
I didn't care. Now I'm
I didn't care. I didn't care. That's like you said. I just didn't care. I just wanted a baby. I just wanted her to know she was acceptable because of that skin tone. But she should be acceptable
Now,
regardless. It
I'm going to
doesn't
say this
matter.
because if anybody goes onto my social media and sees my daughter is very, very fair skinned and has this curly hair. But listen, I didn't pick that just because she was going to have fair skin. Her father's Hispanic. And I wasn't like, well, I'm going to have this been this way by his Hispanic man because my daughter going to turn out with good hair. Hell, I have good hair. I don't give a shit what's considered good hair. So that really wasn't a motivation for me because I didn't even want kids. So it definitely wasn't like
I was literally gonna tell you, baby, they're gonna see Lola, gonna
and
see
then
your baby. They're like, what?
wait a minute, she
What?
talking about colorism and look at her baby.
I'm like, oh, her baby is like pale. Even though she don't act it, but she's pale.
You're right.
So I'm like,
It wasn't, that's not a motivation for me, but it is a motivation in some communities and some families to preserve a certain look. And so back to relating to the ATL Ripper, I do think that colorism played a large part in what was going on with the serial murders, and that the killer was a working class Black man. I do think he was a good looking Black man too.
I do too. I think he was good looking.
You know who he reminded? Okay, now this is in my head, and pardon me, sir, if somebody tags you and says that you are the Atlanta Ripper, but you're not, because I know it's 100 years ago. But
you had a person. Well, you got a. Wait, you're tying into a person because I had mine tied to a person. Okay, you go ahead.
I think that you know who Carl Lumley is. He's an actor. He was just in not Captain America, but the Winter Falcon as he played the old dude that Sam was talking to.
Okay.
But see, back in the day, he used to be in a lot of movies. He was in a movie with was he in Their Eyes Are Watching God with Halle Berry?
I think so.
Okay, that guy. That's what I had in my head as what the Atlanta Ripper probably looked. And I personally think
that's
the looking dude.
That's good. That's good.
Carl Lumley was the sharp nose and dark complexion. I think that is my embodiment physically of the Atlanta Ripper, because you have to think about beauty standards 100 years ago. Um, we all want a man to look like Trevante Rhodes, but there's only one Trevante Rhodes. Lord, Lord, I wish there was a piece of air in my face, Jesus.
And see, in my mind, I put together not the old one, the new one of like a Morse chestnut, because the older Morse
Mm,
chestnut is a little bit more regal
it refined.
frame wise. He's a little bit slimmer now than
Yes,
he
you
was
talking
off
about
Buck.
Ricky. You looking at
And
Ricky.
I see that broad, that very, very, very gentleman-like demeanor. I can see him with the hat on. I can see him just walking because not that new. I mean
But
the
that
old one, the new more.
switch in the personality to someone that could. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I can see that.
That's what I saw.
I can see that kind of broad and rough, a little rough around the edges because he still would have been, at some point, most likely, unless his family was wealthy, coming out of slavery or free, coming out of
Right.
slavery already, um, would have probably been a working class at some point and rose above that with some education. So yeah, maybe I can see
Yeah, but
that.
I had to
But I'm gonna
emphasize
go
the
with my
old
Carl Loveless.
Morris.
I'm
But
gonna
that Carl is, you know what? I'm gonna pick Carl Loveless. That works.
yeah. So I
It works.
please don't say that I think that Carl Lumley, somebody in Carl Lumley's
No,
family was. I'm
sorry.
just saying that physically, that's what I
Sorry
see.
about that.
Someone who was good looking, um, broad shouldered, able to carry himself, and very approachable. Um, However, someone who was fucking psychotic
Yeah.
and was mutilating these women, like Jack the Ripper. Same thing I think about Jack the Ripper. I think personally that Jack the Ripper was okay. Think about Whitechapel. Whitechapel in England was a horrible area. This is where all the prostitutes were. This is where they regulated the lowest of the lowest of the working class. But people of higher social standing would still frequent in these neighborhoods. So we're thinking, okay, these people from the low class, working middle class, and working class, and all that they stay within their geographical boundaries. They don't. They don't. So
Nope.
if I'm working, I have to go to the rich people's side of town because I work there. So yes, I'm going to be out, but also the rich people go to the what they call sometimes the bottoms because that's where all the
Yep.
good stuff is at. The women,
Yep.
the drugs, the food, the nightlife, the entertainment,
It's kind of
all
like that
stuff
now.
is in the bottoms. You want to have a good time, you go to South Dallas.
And no, we don't want to talk about food. We don't want to talk about entertainment. You will be
Hell,
in
Deep
the,
Ellum is South Dallas.
yes. It
You
is,
know,
and it's a party, a giant party.
right. So you go to the bottoms, you go to these places, you frequent these places because that's where all the good stuff happens. So that's what
Mm-hmm.
Jack was doing. Whether he was a doctor or an aristocrat or whatever, he was going to the bottoms. He was enjoying the company of these prostitutes. I think the Jack the Ripper was most likely middle class. I don't think he was an aristocrat, but most likely middle
Yeah.
class, frequented the bottoms or Whitechapel, very recognizable, very innocuous, mild mannered, vanilla type person, and was
I do
able to go
too.
in there and kill these women the same way that now Austin, I think he was a little bit above an aristocrat, or maybe just because he was British. I think it was a British dude. Maybe because he was British, he had the accent, so that lent him a little bit more
British.
panache, and so he was able to, he could have been like had a Cockney accent and went over there, and they'd have been like, "Ooh, he's from England." Um,
You
and so I
definitely
think this is the
described.
person that was navigating in and out of high society. Whether or not he was high society, he was navigating within high society
Definitely.
and able to get in and kill the women. In Atlanta, I think that this was a working class man with high society mannerisms. But I think he worked at the
Attractive.
butcher shop, very attractive, worked in the butcher shop. Because if he was ugly, what woman said he was ugly? She said tall, black, broad shouldered. That meant he was tall, dark, and handsome.
And handsome. That's what it meant. That's the definition.
He was tall, dark, and handsome. And I think the motive most likely was rejection. And that's why he chose mulatto or afternoon. Well, none of the women were dark skinned. None of them were dark skinned. So
Yeah, it was
either his
personal.
mom was a light skinned woman who rejected him, or he had a love some woman that he wanted that rejected him, and he took it out on these women. Now, the murder stopped after a year. Um, doesn't really say why they stopped. So do you okay?
It's,
So considering in
it,
Austin, they stopped because the increased police presence. In Atlanta, they said that they didn't have enough manpower. They said that we won't. This was from a detective, and this is from the article from Troy Taylor. Says that we won't get to the bottom of this thing until we get some help from the Negroes. These murders are being committed amongst the lower class of Negroes, ignorant
wow.
brutalities that know nothing else. Their acquaintances are afraid to talk, but if was a little money slipped, then we could find out invaluable clues, and I wager we would land the murderers, but we haven't got the expenses.
Wow. Somebody pissed.
Think about
But
what police say today. They go into neighborhoods, they brutalize everybody in the damn neighborhood, and then you want to know why you can't solve the murder because ain't nobody talking. Don't nobody talk to you. 5 years ago, we just had a race riot where y'all killed 40 people. You think the police weren't involved in that?
and my thing is, what does that have to do with you doing your damn job?
Because they're black folk, we ain't gonna find out. Think about the insurrection that happened on January 6th. How many policemen and active military and former military veterans were involved in the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol? So we already know that those Rage Against the Machine said those who work forces, are the ones who burn crosses. Shout out to Rage Against the Machine. Those who work forces are the ones who
don't
burn
hate us.
crosses.
I mean, these are facts, not an opinion.
So they really didn't have any buy-in. Oh, they're ignorant, they're brutal, they're beasts. That's what they get. We don't have the money to look. They're not.
Yeah.
You're not inquiring, is what you're doing. You're going.
No, you don't want to.
You're going into the neighborhoods, and you're like, well, they probably deserve to die. Do y'all know anything? Mildred's sitting on her window, done seen everything, and said, "Hell no, I don't know nothing."
That's exactly what happened.
I don't know.
And you know what she's saying? They want to find out, doing their own damn selves. That's what she's saying. Job. That's what she's saying.
And this is what happens in a lot of Black communities, is that a lot of people get away with things is because we're like, we're not going to put another Black man in jail. We're not going to do it. If you're going to do it, you do it. We're not going to tell, you do it. And 100+ years later, you still don't know who the Atlanta Ripper is because you didn't want to put forth the expense. We're talking about Atlanta, Georgia. Even though economics was messed up during that time, you know, the World War I hadn't started yet, but the economic climate was still a little bit poor at the time. We're still talking about Atlanta. We're still talking about money.
Yep. Still talking about it.
And had this happened to white women, there would have been no sparing of expenses.
But you know what I mean? Not at all.
No sparing of expenses. So that quote was from, again, I found that in the Blogspot article from Troy Taylor Books. So you want to, I'll put that link to this article into the description. It's a really, really good article. There were a few rewards that were offered. The coroner offered, after the 8th murder, offered a $25 reward, and then the governor, Hoke Smith, offered $250,000 after the Holly murder. One of the women, last name Holly, was murdered. Hold on. Here's when I was talking about the grand jury and the reason why they gave, and they said that this was committed by all different men.
Yeah.
It says that the Atlanta Constitution in March of 1912 says that each murder was committed by a different man. In each case, it was the result of jealousy following immoral conduct. Victim shaming goes on to say that
be the audacity for me.
Right. So immoral conduct, you're saying that the women were doing something they shouldn't have been doing. There's no proof of that. But then that also goes to that they're beasts and that they're brutal. They're brutal, animalistic beasts.
Yep, pretty much what they said. Again.
You have immoral black women and brutal, animalistic black men. So you put those two things together, you can't help but what's going to happen. Of course.
Yeah.
What did you expect? So that's what they were dealing with in Atlanta. Um, Question: do you think that in someone's attic or basement or diary or something that there's clues
Yep.
to this?
Yep. I do. And if there was, I'm not going to tell it. But I do think somebody knows. It's there. Just like Jack the Ripper. I think somebody knows. Now, whether they've already passed away or not, I mean, it's a whole nother story. But it's known who it is. Somebody knew or knows who they are.
Remember we did the
I'm
story
sorry.
on Gertrude. What was the lady that did the serial killers in Louisiana? She killed like 31 people.
Mm-hmm.
Gertrude. The way that they found out about her was the old lady was telling a young woman in 1984. She was telling the young woman about yeah, I have that on our Instagram page. What's that woman name? Where is she? Where is she? What was it? Gertrude. Here she is. Oh, Clementine Barnabas.
Time.
Clementine Barnabas. Clementine, around this same time in 1910, 1911, Clementine killed like 31 people down in Louisiana. Same time. She was part of a religious cult. 1924, she escaped prison in 1923. And in 1984, she's telling a story to some young woman about Clementine Barnabas and find out she is Clementine Barnabas. And then she dies, though. She dies shortly after.
Yeah.
But for 70 years, she was basically unknown. No one could find her. No one knew who she was. So I think that in this case, of course, 100 years later after the Atlanta murders, that there's no one alive that probably remembers. But maybe there's someone who was a little child who was told the story or heard the story that is still able to retell that story somewhere.
What about Emma? Do you think Emma can remember what he looks like? Is Emma dead?
Emma Lou probably did. Emma Lou did. Emma Lou good did.
A grandchild or
She
something?
didn't die at the time.
Is that if I was tied? If I was had a connection to those type of situations. I'm telling I want it to be remembered. It is big.
She did partially identify Todd Henderson, the guy who that they arrested and talked to, that had the blood and mud on his clothes. So she partially identified him, but they weren't able to convict him of anything. Which made me think about his occupation based on Todd Henderson. Plus, I like his name, and he seems like a tall, broad-shouldered dude with a thin leg, which is weird, but it's just where my mind was at. But I think she knew what he looked like. Being a Black woman, I don't know how well her descriptions or her recollection was received.
Mm-hmm.
They arrested so many men and profiled so many men. And I think the reason why the grand jury, because they couldn't figure out, there was no real reason why they said it was, 21 different guys. I think the reason why they did that is another aspect of racial profiling, that we need to get as many of these people off the streets as possible. So if we can convict 20 of them, we'll convict 20 of them. But I don't think that there were 20 men walking around Atlanta with the same mindset and capable of murder like this in that time period. I don't think if you put nowadays, if there's 20 people that who are capable of murder like this. So I don't think it was a group of men. I think it was a single man.
Yep.
Was able to get away with it. Think about the Grim Sleeper. Think about Samuel Little. They were able to get away with it because Samuel Little was able to get away with it just because he was all over the place. But you think about the Grim Sleeper. He was able to get away with that for so many years because his victims were Black. His victims were prostitutes. They were Black. They were in a marginalized community. No one gave 3 flying fucks about these Black women. This guy was able to get away with because no, especially in 1911, was able to get away with it because no one gave five shits about
Bad.
black women because what they were probably immoral anyway.
Yep.
They were pretty. You got a pretty light skinned black girl. Oh yeah, she did it. She did it. She's guilty. She has to be immoral. She's
Has to
pretty.
be.
She's light skinned. She's desirable. She has the nerve to walk down the street with her head up and knows that she's pretty and desirable. Of course she's immoral because she's making me look at her. You are victim blaming in the worst possible way.
Well, they just didn't care.
No, and that's why they were able to get away with it.
They didn't care.
If we find out any new information on this, either of these cases, we'll definitely come back and talk about them. Again, this is our last episode for the next 3 weeks. We won't be seeing y'all until the 27th and airing on the 29th on YouTube. So this is our last show for 3 weeks. However, news still happens and we will still be posting on Instagram and Facebook. And in the meantime, if there's any information, anything you want us to know, anything you want us to do for the next, what we're going to call our whole year season, because we're going to do a season for a whole nother year, to get 45 more episodes, let us know. We
Please.
love to hear from you. We would love to have some new subscribers. Let us know what you want to hear. Let us know if we talk about one thing too much, but we're probably still going to talk about it because
Yes.
that's what we're going to do. So let us know. We do appreciate everyone out there who tunes into us weekly every Tuesday on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. And we will see y'all in a couple of weeks. So we do thank you and bye, y'all. Hope you enjoyed it. But we out. It's barbecue time.